Inmates in Canada will pay more money for their room and board, and some offenders employed within institutions through a popular job skills program will no longer be paid. That announcement was made by Public Safety Minister Toews today. Toews also announced changes to the way inmates can buy goods and that they will be charged more for even using the telephones. The Public Safety Minister says the changes are designed to increase offender accountability and will also save you, the taxpayer, more than $10 million per year. I want to talk about this with my next guest. He is Rick Osborne. He's spent 25 years in Canada's prison system, over a collection of prisons, 13 prisons, for robbery, weapons,
assault, narcotics.
Assault and narcotics.
Yeah.
Okay, that totaled up to 25. And it's important to point out now you are working with youth, mentoring youth to make sure, to try to keep them from getting into the gang life.
Yeah, or into prison in the first place.
Into prison in the first place.
Yeah.
That's always a good idea. What's your reaction to Vic Toews' announcement today that he's going to claw back some of that money for room and board?
I don't like it. And, you know, I read it and looked at it, and I understand CORCAN and the different systems within it, incentive pay. But it's not taking the inmates into account that these are human beings. These are somebody's daughters and sons. The rehabilitation is a part of it, and I don't see it in this. It's almost like when they clawed back the minimum security facilities. Wait a second, we're trying to cascade guys down so that when they get on the street, they're prepared when they get out there and don't reoffend. If they take all guys' disposable income, then the black market comes into play inside.
What do you mean?
Well, I'll give you a quick example.
Yeah.
When they brought in testing for marijuana, testing for drugs inside, the one that guys couldn't beat was marijuana because it's fat soluble. Everything else, you do a drug, a cocaine on Monday, you pee clean on Wednesday. It's metabolized by the liver. When they brought this in, it looked good. It's going to stop drug use. It didn't. It did the opposite, because now guys couldn't use soft drugs to escape, and they went to hard drugs because they would wash away. And within 3 years, we had to bring methadone in. That's how much of the hard drugs came in. So we have to be careful of how far you push inmates, because you start hurting them after a while. Okay,
so how might the black market come into play in a scenario like this where people are losing a third of their income? How much might a guy or gal make during the day, by the way?
Well, I think the top pay is $6.90 a day. So if you just say $70 is top pay every 2 weeks, so $140, you'd be paying 30% of that out for your
room and board. This law.
But also you pay for your cable, if you want to have cable, and that's basic cable. So you also have to pay for toiletries and stamps, and so it really is, the guys have no money now.
Right.
And then that plays into the black market.
Okay, so how might that play into the black market? How might that work?
Well, guys still want to have disposable income for whatever reason, and now they get played. Like Kingston Penitentiary is closing. Here, a protective custody facility. Most of those guys in there are for drug debts, not because they're rapists or pedophiles or considered, informants. They're in there because they've gotten into, guys are in prison because they're not good at making choices. And most of them don't even know how to live properly. They haven't had a job and structured and everything. So I understand that part of it when they speak to accountability and understanding that that's the same percentage we pay for our mortgage or whatever. But in there, that doesn't make any, like, these guys are dealing with, most of them, drug issues, right, where they need to learn. And then, so we're kind of,
so they need to learn to manage their money. You're saying they won't be able to manage it because there's no money to manage.
Because there's no money to manage. And when you say $10 million, that's spread across Canada. This government wastes $10 million like that, right? So even, we're talking about humans here, not numbers on a sheet. And I think that's what we're losing. We're losing contact with. These are, if we look at it, what were you in prison for? Let's address the issues. Let's cascade you out so that you're in a minimum security at the end, and you're basically like in an apartment, and then you go. That was minimum security, and now that doesn't exist, and now we're taking more. And it just seems like there's no voice. The inmates don't have a voice, and so they're just getting railroaded.
What about those who say, look, you want to take the government wants to take a tough on crime approach. These guys, you're right, didn't make great choices. Guys and gals didn't make great choices. That's why they ended up in prison in the first place. But really, to be making money while they're in there that they have to use, they don't deserve it, some may say.
I know, but I mean, it's a small amount of money, and it really is just quality of life, so they can function, stay in contact with their family and things like that. It's not a large amount of money.
How did the money help you?
Well, the money helped me as I got a university degree inside, so that's a program that probably wouldn't exist right now either because, but, I could work in Corcan, incentive pay, and incentive pay is driven by product, like you're doing piecework.
What did you do in Corcan, by the way?
We did mailboxes.
You made mailboxes for Canada Post?
Yep.
Okay.
And we did furniture for different, offices and
Okay. And how did you get to do that?
Well, and see, they say in it there's a big supply of people that want to come in there. They don't have to do incentive anyway, and that's word speak, and they're fooling around with that. The incentive is piecework incentive. It's not incentive to work there.
Right, they say the government, just to clarify for the audience, the government is saying that it's not going to give that incentive pay to work anymore. And that incentive pay was so you would make the maximum amount that you could in a day.
So you weren't even taking breaks. You weren't, and the thing was, most of these guys, that money goes to their families too when they make stuff like this because they have kids and things, and for them to visit and offset.
And how much would you make from the incentive pay?
Well, sometimes it would be $500 over your incentive pay over maybe a 2-month period of time where you had to get the product done, and so it's it lets guys like send some money home or
and the advantage for them is they get the product out on time. So now if they take away the incentive pay, what incentive do they have to get the product out on time?
Well, you're getting down to slavery now. When you have a guy where he's working all week and doesn't have any disposable income at the end, that's called slavery. So really, how far are you going with what you're going to make guys do inside?
Yeah, and they probably wouldn't want to do it.
If they wouldn't want to do it, there would be no incentive to do it now. Like, it's taken that away.
Okay, well, Rick, I want to thank you for coming in and sharing your insight.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Rick Osborne, former inmate, now mentors youth away from prison and gangs, joining me live in the studio. Thanks.